Hello, readers and digital people, and welcome back to the Flatcap Recap. I am your host, Grant Reeds.
And I'm your co-host, Friendly.
And today we are diving headfirst into meta. Is it a new world for us all to explore? Is it a lie? We will dig into it as deep as we can go, and we'll find out. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to talk about kind of the image they've been selling with meta, and what I believe it is. So, from what I've seen, from what they've advertised, it looks like the Ready Player One scenario of Oasis. Now, it's not quite as interactive. It's still being built. It's still in the very early development stages, so you can't really see how advanced it's going to be yet. But they're selling it as this world you go into, you do things in, you sell things in, you pretty much live your life in this second virtual reality world. Now, I don't think it's exactly what they're selling. Because, I mean, the avatars are okay, but I mean, it isn't exactly a virtual implantation of yourself into this world. And basically, if you've read Ready Player One or seen the movies, you know the bad guys? The ones that wanted to monetize and start charging a fee for Oasis? Well,
yeah.
It kind of looks like that's what they're going to do straight out the gate. I've seen some pricing things. I've seen a lot of things that are going to cost money to do. Pretty much it's going to be a video game with a bunch of microtransactions. So what is your take on that?
So right off the bat, as you said, it very much been advertised as a digital oasis paradise on the internet that you can access, and really it's the VR implementation of something like Half-Life. And on the surface, it's a pretty cool idea. And as you mentioned, even it's not quite there in terms of graphics and having it feel immersive to the sense of like you feel like you could walk up and like pat somebody on the shoulder or something like that. But they're trying to sell it as if that's what it will become. And at the end of the day, Metaverse is little more than a cryptocurrency. The whole system is built around blockchain. It's based off the blockchain. Now, the blockchain in and of itself is a very generic term. It's essentially just a system of ledgers that can be cross-checked by anybody. So you can follow data trails or money trails or whatever it is that you are inputting as data. And you can see the start point and the end result of that and the transactions and how it interacts with things. And that's fine. It's a brilliant system, and it's a wonderful way of breaking up data storage in such a way that I don't need to have a massive server farm to do simple interactions with other people.
Okay, so from what you're saying, it's almost a front for this like cryptocurrency behind the scenes business, and then they're putting it up as this Oasis video game virtual reality world when it's more basically just a video game with like a filter for their crypto. Is that right?
Yeah. And to dig into that a bit, it's even more blatant once you really look at how Metaverse functions on just a base level. So it's built off the blockchain. Blockchain is fine. It's also the basis for many cryptocurrencies because it allows for easy tracking and transfer of data or wealth. What Facebook/Meta has done is they've built out a digital landmass. You have the globe, the meta globe. They've then taken each region. I think there's 7 regions, and each region has a set number of blocks, just like Bitcoin has a set number of bitcoins that can be minted and mined. Metaverse has done that with their digital landmass, and they've broken it down into essentially digital real estate lots. But each of those digital real estate lots, really on a more fundamental level, are just a crypto coin token.
Oh wow! So it's just a new form of crypto, basically, and that's all it really is. It's virtual. Actually, you know what it reminds me of? What is it? NFTs? It's like that, but with land masses in a virtual world.
Yes, yeah. And I'm not. I know enough about crypto to be dangerous and not enough to explain things well. But on a basic, very, very just basic level, not knowing so much about crypto, to really be able to dig into any individual one, but just on a more basic how it works. It's what they've done. They've turned a digital realm into a whole bunch of different coins. And then they've made it so that you can only buy things in specific regions in that game with specific types of crypto coin. There's only a dozen coins that they accept, and guess who minted all of those coins?
Wow.
Meta! Or subsidiary.
It's like they built a little town in the internet where it's like a gated community and you can only use their type of money and only do things that oh wow, that is super oppressive and not freeing at all like they're advertising. It's not exploring new worlds, it's making you have to live in theirs.
Literally. It's actually, I'd say it's that plus company token.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sure you are aware of what a company token is, but just in case there's some people out there that aren't, back in ye old day, you'd work a job in, a new railroad or whatever, and instead of paying you in US dollars, they would pay you in blank railroad token, and you could only spend those tokens at the company store.
Oh, I do not like where this is going. Now, do you think this is still Meta's, let's say, bottom layer, and they're going to try to build up from here and build the virtual world on this platform? Because if they build the digital world starting here, I can only see it going downhill. Is this the primary focus, the primary reason to have Meta in existence? Or is this just something they're doing to make it monetarily feasible to build right now? Like, is this their main focus, or do you know?
So, speculation. But I would start the speculation off with a quote from the Zuckerberg himself, which is, the person that controls the information controls the future. And they are building a system that they are saying is the future that is entirely based off a system that allows you to track the data. And guess who's in control of that data?
It's like Facebook, only the entire world. It's basically a gated community. I mean, look at Facebook. That's the reason I deleted my Facebook. I hate the way it's designed where everything's blocked into Facebook. You can only see things if you're a member of Facebook. You can only do things according to their... I mean, everybody has their TOS, but theirs are way more restrictive. And even if it fits a TOS, they'll censor you, they'll shadow ban you. And it is a form of censoring, and they'll also just blur it out and say this is not something that Facebook would like for you to see. It's extremely restricting. It definitely feels like a white picket fence gated community situation, and that really sounds like they're bringing that aspect into the metaverse as well.
I would say that at the end of the day, their entire platform, Facebook at large, it started off as a cool social platform, and I think he had far more grandiose plans for it even back then, but I don't know that he even realized what it could become at the point of founding. I feel like now it is just this kind of the epitome of Big Brother.
Yeah, it is. If the internet was like Facebook, it would be awful. It would, because we think YouTube, the things YouTube's doing, the censorship on YouTube is bad. Look at Facebook. They are very biased on Facebook, more so than any other place. The little groups and stuff, they focus on certain groups and don't on others. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm pretty sure everyone listening will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Facebook is so biased, and so, when you subscribe to someone on YouTube, you at least get their content. And now their content may be taken down, their content may be demonetized, it may be restricted, but you still can see their content. On Facebook, they make a curated list, not only in your feed, but on the person's profile. So if there's things on there that you wouldn't be that interested in, you don't even know they posted it. You go to their webpage, you go to their wall, it's not even on their wall unless Facebook decides that's something that you would like to see. That's how restrictive it is, all the way to the person's profile. It's bad. Whoa. So if they're going to implement that type of restriction in Meta, we'll all get a curated view of it. We'll never actually see the true Meta. We'll all live in our own little bubbles that they've decided we should live in. And that is Big Brother. That's super dangerous.
Honestly, I wouldn't be as skeptical if they were just upfront about the core functionality of the system at large and just told people that this was all tied to specific cryptos, and that this was all based off blockchain technology. And
why are they hiding it?
And it's not like it's hidden, but it's not something that they mention in any of his big fancy, welcome to Meta. Look at our Meta
Yeah.
videos.
I mean, honestly, I don't even see it as a complete bad thing. I mean, it's not a good thing per se, but I mean, yeah, cool. They want to make their own crypto and have their own version of crypto that is virtual lands and virtual buildings and virtual assets. Cool. It's NFTs. I mean, people do that. You've made your own. Interesting. That's a cool thing to do. But in the same token, they're trying to sell it as a virtual world. They're keeping that on the DL and focusing on other aspects they think will be more marketable to the general audience. Why would they do that unless they're trying to hide the fact that they're doing that in the first place?
It's ye old bait and switch is what it is. They sell you a product, get you interested in it and invested in it on an emotional level because now your friends are in and people you know. Now you have become left out by not participating. And once you're in it, regardless of if you can even really afford it, you're in it.
That's so incredibly sketchy.
Even worse than that, they aren't even going to, I guess, current regular VR goggles are good and all and kind of work with it. A lot of people I've seen were kind of having issues with your typical VR headsets.
Are we talking Oculus or are you talking about just like your normal brand?
I'm not sure specifically on the brands. It's not something I'm familiar with really at all. But I think it was just your typical whatever headset. And they kind of worked. But guess what? Facebook has its new baseline model that will be coming out later this year. That's going to be $450.
Oh, wow.
Or they will have their ultra deluxe super supreme specialty wombo combo headset for $900.
I'm wondering now, the way you say that, it makes me think that the Oculus, their current flagship models, it makes me wonder if they're having trouble with it. And they're going to try to bait and switch us on that and make us buy the upscaled model or struggle to even exist in it, basically. It's like they tried to sell us an iPhone 5 and gave us a program that runs on iPhone 10. So we got to get the 10 so that we can actually use it. That makes me nervous. The fact it's fine to have new pieces of software and then have hardware that'll go along with it and work with it. But when you keep upscaling like that, especially with something as big as Meta, something as ambitious as Meta, it really needs to be run mostly on the servers, but that makes me think that it's going to run through the proprietary implementations. It's going to run through the actual hardware itself. The most of the processing power is going to be in your VR. It's going to be on you. And the problem with that is as they implement more things into Meta and as they grow Meta, you're going to have to upgrade and grow with them, which means it's going to be a constant expense. So this may not actually be as affordable as we were thinking. This may not allow us to, instead of having 4 or 5 TVs, to just have this VR headset. It may be so expensive that it's still cheaper to use the physical products in real life, such as the phones and the computers and cameras and what else. I mean, this doesn't sound like a viable, I don't want to say replacement either, but a viable option, a viable substitute if you wanted to substitute for the things in real life. This is sounding more to me like it's just another cash grab, and that is really sad because if that's what this is not the future. And if people, since Facebook's so powerful and they have so much money involved in these things, if people decide that this is the way they want to pursue the future and they use Meta as the grounds to build all these new worlds, to build the virtual reality sphere, to build the oasis, so to speak, we're honestly screwed. Because if they become, especially if they can copyright this type, I mean, it's hard to do. It's hard to copyright a genre, but it isn't impossible. If they copyright this virtual world and make it where they're the only ones allowed to do it, I mean, it'll basically be a monopoly and then we're in big trouble. So honestly, someone needs to come along with their own version of Meta quickly if that's what they're trying to do before that happens.
Interestingly, Facebook is not the only one creating a metaverse.
Okay, now I wasn't aware of that. I haven't actually looked into other people doing it. I've only done research on Meta so far. I've kind of heard whispers of people wanting to do it, and I've heard some implementation, some designs of it, but I didn't know anybody was actually in the development stages with it yet.
Yeah, and it wasn't something that I found super much on, but it appeared, at least from my looks, that it was an official press release that Microsoft is developing a metaverse.
I mean, as long as there's competition in this kind of thing is healthy, especially if they're trying to pull crap like that and be all sneaky about it. So I'm hopeful in that, But, I mean, Microsoft is actually powerful enough to compete with Facebook, and actually, if theirs is better, they could push theirs over the edge and just completely make Meta just pointless. I don't know.
Especially with, for all their financial clout, Facebook isn't a game developer. Microsoft, I mean, how many game developers does Microsoft own? Imagine if they just were like, you know what? All of you are dissolved and reabsorbed into this new super team. You now make all of our content for our VR systems. I mean, I think that they would blow anything Facebook could possibly create out of the water.
Hey, could you imagine this? What if secretly the reason they've been buying all these companies, the reason they bought Rare, the reason they bought Mojang, how do you pronounce it? Mojang. The reason they bought, who did they buy recently? They bought another big company recently. Activision. What if the reason they're buying all these game companies is to build their metaverse? I mean, they could be.
I honestly think it's a viable possibility.
I kind of love that.
It just makes sense, really.
What, you don't think Facebook is a real game developer? I mean, come on. We've got all these farming simulators. We've got all these app games. We've got some VR video games. I mean, come on. That was the best sound ever.
That was the sound of a sloth dying on the inside.
It was. It really was. So, I mean, we've got competition, though. That's good. I wasn't aware of that. I knew that at one point Microsoft was talking about it, and I knew at one point Google was talking about it, but I mean, I didn't really see any implementation. I didn't really see, them moving from concept phase into a beta, alpha, testing phase. So I'm glad to hear that they're actually starting to experiment with it, and they're putting their foot in the door. So they're not just leaving this vacuum for Facebook to come in and just absorb everything.
I'm not sure how far they are into things, and also just based off of my very limited understanding of the reality of how it will fundamentally work is really a monetary system. I suspect that
for all of them?
People
you mean?
Just Facebook in particular, or Metaverse. If my understanding is more or less this is a giant Ponzi scheme.
I mean, that's what it sounds like, basically.
It's hard for me to imagine that these other, multi-billion-dollar corporations couldn't also figure that out themselves and know enough to be, and that would be why they're not, screaming, "We're making one too," because they're like, "Oh, that's what you're doing." Just based on Wi-Fi coverage for most of the planet, quite frankly, I think there's a large percentage of the planetary population that is default, not, saying it's a good thing, but protected from it because connecting to something like that isn't even really an option. I think the rest of the planet will realize that it's all in-app purchases. To do anything in this world, you have to buy land with a crypto that's owned by Facebook.
Yeah.
And to get that crypto, you need to exchange, you basically have to wash other crypto into these new tokens, and just so that you can buy like a piece of land, and then celebrities are in on it. Snoop Dogg has apparently bought a huge section of land in there for like $2.5 million US.
I'm seeing a major problem already. I'm kind of seeing its collapse just thinking about all this. If enough people do not invest in this, it will be worth nothing, and its stock prices will go down, and therefore their entire platform, since it is based on this cryptocurrency, will die. And that's what I'm seeing now.
I mean, it's a pump and dump because, and you could see it. You could actually watch it real time occur in the ledgers. Snoop Dogg buys this huge chunk of land and starts doing stuff. And people realize that there's free land around Snoop Dogg. They start paying exorbitant amounts for it. Because Snoop Dogg bought this land. Yep. They want to add.
Hey, neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's kind of cool, though. I mean, it's a cool concept. It sucks. This is the way they're proceeding with this, because it's such a cool concept.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, when we recorded the past 2 episodes, I was very much buying the sale of goods that I was presented with. There's so much potential for good and connection and progress with this. It's just sad to see that it's not what it's shaping up to actually be.
I mean, this is just one window of that. This is just what Facebook's doing with it. I mean, everyone else may not be that awful with it. Like I said, just comparing YouTube to Facebook, it's a world of difference. So, I mean, if anything, if they're even on YouTube level versus Facebook level in differences, then, I mean, the one from Microsoft's going to be a billion times better. So, I'm still hopeful.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, really.
Something good comes out of this. I also suspect that it's an issue of just... Okay, so this isn't my personal observation. This is actually Elon Musk observation.
I love him so much. Sometimes he's like, ooh, but other times he's like, this man's a genius. It's one of those.
He's either crazy or he's brilliant, and
Exactly.
Sometimes his crazy is brilliant, but you'll want to watch which of his quotes you go after. This one's pretty safe, I feel. He asked a very simple question. How many hours in a day do you want to have on a pair of synaptic gloves and a 4 or 5 pound headset?
To be honest, if you're asking me specifically,
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do it over 3 or 4 hours. I mean, have you tried the Oculus Quest? That thing is heavy, and it gets super uncomfortable quick, and it hurts your eyes quick. So honestly, over 4 hours, I couldn't handle.
Now realize that Meta is essentially selling you a good that its main value, this is a great thing for these reasons, depends on you being in there almost 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to invest a lot of time, and you've got to pretty much upkeep this land. You've got to be in there making sales. I mean, if you're going to live in this world, you've got to be able to do it for more than 4 hours without suffering. I mean, comfortably, at least in the Oculus Quest version of the virtual reality, it's only comfortable for maybe an hour or two. So if you can't overdo an hour or two comfortably, they're not even close to being there yet. They're trying to force something they haven't even approached yet. And I don't know about this $900 model, this new flagship model. They may be more comfortable. They may be less heavy, just better interface altogether. But as it stands right now, from what I've seen from them, it's not to par. And I hate to say that because, I mean, it's cool. It's a cool toy, but it's not something you could do for a long time. Let's say at the point it is right now, it couldn't even be your main primary game console because it's just uncomfortable to use.
No,
and
forget games and fun. One of their biggest selling points is work.
There's no way you could work. I mean, unless you just want to suffer. Like I said, after about 4 hours, your eyes feel like they're going to fall out of your head. They're burning so bad. And you get a headache. You feel off balance. I mean, that may be something you get used to after you've used it a lot. Maybe it's something kind of like how if you don't ride in a car for a long time, then it makes you sick when you ride in it. Maybe it's like that. If you do it enough, your body becomes used to it. But, I mean, unless it does that, I can't even see it being viable to use for over an hour or two. I mean, I've done it but I mean, it's uncomfortable. At about the 2 hour, 2 hour and a half, 3 hour mark, I mean, it's very uncomfortable, and you've really got to struggle just to get to that 4th hour. There's no way I could work in this situation.
Just with that in mind, it feels like a product that is already DOA.
If it's the same. Yeah, if this new headset isn't a huge improvement, huge upgrade in every way, then yeah. Oculus Quest is good, but it's not even good enough to be a primary game system, so it's definitely not good enough to be your workspace and your virtual world. It's not comfortable.
Even Google Glasses, they were way better, and people still had those same issues of headaches and migraines and disoriented. I think until our brain can process the data that's presented to us via digital interface and reality in the same way.
I mean, it is confusing. I mean, think about what your brain... It's used to seeing the world in, kind of a 3D sphere, and you have your lights and the way light reflects off of things. Now you've got this weird apparatus that's really close to your eyes that's projecting basically a 3D image onto your eyes where it looks like you're in a virtual world. I mean, that's gotta... I mean, no matter how good you get with that, your brain has gotta be confused about why all these lights now have all these dimensions to them. I mean, it's weird. It is weird.
Yeah. Look, your brain's... No, this isn't right. It's not real.
Where are the shadows? These aren't real shadows. It's more light.
Unless the system itself is developed perfectly.
Where it actually casts shade and lights into your eyes. It would have to actually replicate the world one for one in a in a prism that's close enough to your eye where you don't notice the edges. I mean, it's a hard thing to manage, and it's incredible they've got where they've gotten with it. But it's just our bodies. They haven't accounted for that human element, which is also scary. They haven't really thought of the person in development. They thought more of the concept, what it could provide, but they didn't take the human reaction into perspective when developing this. That's obvious just from that. The fact that it still hurts us, the fact that in its finished state, it still makes people nauseated and gives people headaches, and it's heavy. They're not thinking about the person. They're thinking about what it does exclusively. And that does not seem like a positive thing to me whatsoever.
Huh. Yeah, I hadn't even considered that aspect of it, but yeah, I know. It just seems to sadly come back to cash grab.
Yeah. Yeah. They're acting like we're in the future to get the buck quick.
I'm not even sure that you could do what you were talking about with, a one-for-one replication through a prism type situation. I think you'd almost have more luck going, like, Sword Art Online.
I know of it.
A similar system to that. It's almost, you have a system, it's almost like, honestly, one of like the Matrix tubes.
Okay.
A full immersive VR dive.
I kind of feel like it would have to almost be a projection into our brains for it to be perfect. Like, going through our eyes are never going to be able to perceive it like real life because it's not. So I'm starting to think now, I'm wondering if the only way to get to that true digital world is to have some kind of interface where it's directly translating into the brain instead of trying to go through the eyes as light.
Yeah, and at that point, no thank you. Nope, you could never pay me enough money for one very simple reason. Computer viruses, man.
Right? Imagine getting hacked. Your brain getting hacked.
Yeah. Or imagine you're directly plugged into a system that glitches.
Oh, no. The first ever human glitches.
You plug into Fallout 76.
Basically. Could you imagine if the whole world got infected with a virus and we have a Fallout 76 world?
No. No. No.
This whole concept. I mean, it's good in theory, and it's interesting in theory, and I mean, maybe one day we'll get there. Maybe one day we'll figure out how to make it an actual viable solution for enhancement to humanity. But as it stands right now, this is starting to seem more and more like a gimmick, more and more like a false alarm, and really, it is starting to seem like some kind of scheme. But I mean, the fact that these other companies are doing it too, and everybody's really looking that way and expecting this kind of revolution system to be coming, I think it's coming, or something that will lead into it is coming, but honestly, it just doesn't look like we're there, does it?
It really doesn't. I think they had the right idea with using the concept of blockchain for dealing with the computational factors, and I think we've talked about some of the potentials of just allowing for a more personal social life, even if, we don't feel comfortable physically meeting somebody IRL for whatever reason. You could still have I'm going to go see my friends today type experience. And there's potential benefits there, but as the system is built out now, unfortunately, all of those aspects have already been monetized. Yeah. And even just to get in on having any sort of meaningful metaverse existence, you have to pay.
Yeah.
You have to pay to get in so that you can have other people pay you to do things for them.
Which is kind of what I was talking about, that system. I mean, and that would work if that's not a requirement, and that's something you can do extra. But it sounds to me like they're making that the fundamental of it, and that's a big problem. And honestly, really looking at it, really thinking about it now, it's basically it's not even that much of an advancement in comparison to just like Facebook or another social media. It's right now where it stands, it's almost just Facebook 2.0. It's kind of halfway there. It's halfway in that virtual world, but it's really just not there, especially with the way they're handling it. They're honestly, they're the ones holding it back. And it's weird because I'm both happy about that, happy that we're not quite there yet because we weren't ready, systematically yet. But, it's also sad because it may honestly, it may be something we don't even really see in our time the actual true virtual world. And that's kind of sad. But I mean, in the same token, you don't want to just rush into it. You want it to, when it is done, you want it to be done right. And that's what's most important. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, I guess. I mean, it's still up in the air. It could be that. If there's something else could come along and be that. But I definitely do not believe it's meta. Meta's just not up to par. I'm sorry.
It's not. Sadly. Because, I mean, we spent, 3-4 hours over the past week talking about the potential benefits.
And looking into it. All the hours of research.
And then now we're... And I am going to take Metaverse out back proverbially.
Yeah.
Old Yeller the situation. Sorry.
I mean, did we really expect anything major from Facebook? I mean, it's Facebook. Even if it's called Meta now, it's Facebook.
I think... Okay. I think I fell for their trap.
Yeah, I think we did. I think everybody did.
We were presented with what it could be, and allowed our imagination to run away without, until this episode, taking a second and looking at what it really is.
Yeah, basically what happened, if you want to look at it this way in a literary sense, basically what happened is we read the synopsis and then decided what the entire book was like. Basically.
Yeah, we kind of did. Made for a good couple episodes, though.
Yeah, it did. Good dust jacket, guys. Good dust jacket.
You have done it well. We bought your book. We hate it now, but we bought it. Well played.
Honestly, I'm glad we did, though.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it is going to go that way. Like I was saying, that is definitely going to play a part in the future, I believe. But, it's good to see the failures and the, when there is success, it's good to see that and the shortcomings, because that shows we're being careful. I'm just glad that we discussed it, so maybe we could shed light to a few people who believe this, that we're at this future, and they can realize that this is definitely not the one, even if there was one, and just kind of show where we're at, and to basically warn them and keep them from being scammed.
Sadly, there's a lot of scammy undertones for the whole thing when you start looking at it. Not to say that crypto itself is a scam, that there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, it's the type, it's the way they're implementing their crypto. They're making it very exclusive, and when you do that, I mean, basically saying you can only use our crypto in this version of the internet. You can't use it in the actual internet. You can only use it in our internet, in our meta. They're taking it off of the public domain and bringing it into their private internet. And that's where you kind of start seeing the lines. It's basically, in its current form, it's basically a video game. So we really shouldn't have expected any more.
Disappoint.
Sorry, future.
Great disappoint. Yeah. And honestly, I don't know. Here's a hot take. Probably, I don't think our future is digital. I think we are more or less at the point of having met the boundaries of what digital is capable of.
Really? You think so?
I think we're going back to analog, man.
Really? Now, care to explain that? In what sense?
In a computational sense.
I'm trying to get a lead off of that, but it's like, where exactly are you drawing that conclusion from?
So it's a difference between binary and a clock, binary and gear.
So what you're saying is basically we're not going to have the digital sphere. We're going to build more machines in real time in the actual physical world.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's kind of what we were talking about in the last episode a little bit, kind of bringing the digital into the physical. With just more advanced machines, maybe more bionic pieces for people who can't walk and things like that. If they want to have some kind of enhancements, more advanced enhancements where it's basically an actual, basically Star Wars, maybe go that direction with it. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think I mentioned in a previous episode how we're with, cell phones and everything now, we're basically cyborgs already.
Right.
Everybody thinks Terminator when you say cyborg, but really it's just a human or being integrated with any sort of technological.
People with enhancements like bionic eyes so they can see really far, and bionic arms so they'll be really strong. Not even people that have to have it, people just that want to have it as an enhancement. You kind of thinking that's our future?
Yeah, to a degree. I'm not sure as far as the extremes that'll go, but humans are ones for extremes for sure. you'll probably eventually reach a point where it's almost a requirement to have some sort of grade just to be able to compete with other people.
Right.
But
on your application, you write how many enhancements you have and what you have enhanced.
yeah, I mean, not for nothing. I saw you mentioned Boba, the guy repairing her abdomen, that surgery arm. Like, I was sitting there going, I want that.
Right.
I want that. Do you know how much? What I could do wood carving wise with that attachment?
Yeah, I mean, in that aspect, and in that kind of analog, yeah, I mean, really, it's limitless. We could be, I wouldn't want us to be that way, but we could basically be Terminator robots no. We could basically be Inspector Gadget.
Yes.
Just a whole species of Inspector Gadgets. Now that is a future I could look forward to.
I could live with that.
Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week. It's going to be definitely one you'll want to tune into. Again, this has been the Flatcap Recap. I am your host, Grant Reeds.
I'm your co-host, Friendly.
Keep your eyes wide open and never stop reading.